Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are joining us from. We are here today with Ben Jenkins. He is the Director of Cybersecurity for ThreatLocker. Hey, Ben, how are you?
Hey, I'm well, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, great. So
Wonderful.
I understand you are in London, UK, right?
Yes, the accent may have given it away there, but
Uh,
yeah,
you
yes.
can't
So
escape
based,
it.
based out of London, actually, just to the west of London. I'm in a town called Reading, but
Okay.
it's kind of very much now a borough of London, or just a part of London. We're a big commuter town, so I'm about 30 minutes outside.
I got you. I got you. Great, great. So how long have you been with ThreatLocker?
So I've been with ThreatLocker for about a year now.
Okay.
Originally, I joined in the kind of solutions engineering department. Been doing a lot of the kind of key presentations. So for any of you who's seen Danny do his presentations,
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing that I get involved in, at least over in EMEA, and then help out where I can over in the US as well.
Okay, great, great. Well, I understand you are filling in for Ryan Bowman today. Ryan's
Yeah.
got an event or something he's going to. So we haven't been a guest on the show before, so we're excited to have you and see what you can tell us about ThreatLocker today.
I'm excited to be here.
That's great. That's great. Um, well, I think I have set the screen share and everything. So what I wanted to ask you though, I always ask this because it's pretty interesting and great conversation. What is the weather like in London today?
So as a Brit, we like talking about the weather, and I was on Reddit earlier,
Okay.
going through an Ask Reddit on, or we have an Ask UK, and one of the things was what's one of the stereotypes about Brits that's 100% correct, and weather is one of them.
Okay.
So the weather today has been very very patchy. It's kind of raining. It's not super warm, and then has a nice sunny spell every so often. So it's basically peak British summer.
Gotcha.
It's just a slight letdown is the easiest way to describe our
Okay.
weather today. We've had some really good weather this week, and next week I think we're going to be hitting about 26, 27, which in your money will be close to 80, somewhere around there.
I gotcha. I gotcha. Well,
So
I am in Columbia, South Carolina, and the weather current temperature is 88 degrees right now. So it's not too bad. It's not brutally hot, but I will tell you, man, Saturday, I lost the air. My heating and air system went out. So it has
oh,
been brutal. And I haven't had to replace a heating and air system in a while, and it has taken like a week and a half.
oh, that's
So,
painful.
oh, very,
Yeah, no.
very.
So we get it quite bad. So actually, right now my temperature is 61 Fahrenheit.
Okay.
So it's nice. It's quite mild. We get a couple of weeks a year where it will be like probably 80s, somewhere around the high 70s, low 80s, somewhere around that.
Okay.
And it'll be kind of a couple of weeks or a week off, week on, week off kind of thing. The
Gotcha.
problem is in the UK we don't have aircon.
No air
Having that kind of
conditioning.
it doesn't make sense here for us
Gotcha.
because we're colder more than we're warm. So we have some great heating systems to keep our houses warm. And when we build our houses, we actually build them. We build them all out of brick, and then we put a
Okay.
ton of insulation inside, which you think would be really really great for
Sure.
insulating the heat out. No, no, no. It turns your house into an oven. So
Oh,
for
it keeps the
about
heat
three
in.
weeks of a year, yeah. So for about 3 weeks of a year, your house just becomes this just well an oven for lack of a better term.
I gotcha.
We had a heat wave about 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago,
Okay.
and I was away. I came into the house and it was warmer inside the house than it was if we were outside.
Oh,
So yeah,
wow.
it's we get some when we get our heat because we're not overly prepared and we don't have the aircon. That's where it gets
Sure.
really really bad for us.
All right. All right. Well, I got to ask you about the skateboard in the back too. You a skater?
uh, yes and no. I used to be. I will skateboard when I can, which is becoming less and less often.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. Fair enough.
so I try to. I have a skateboard and a longboard. The longboarding is a bit easier, and I can go a bit faster on it, which is more my kind of thing. I like the speed.
I
But
gotcha.
yeah, I do still try to skateboard. I've realized though, as I've been getting older, um, it hurts a lot, and you definitely feel it the next day. So
Yep. I used to skateboard when I was a teenager, and
Yeah.
I could fall and get right back up. I
Oh
didn't wear
yeah.
knee pads or anything, no helmets and all that back in the day when I was young.
Yep.
So, I don't know. I'm very sympathetic with that, but I recently tried to get on a skateboard as well and ended up breaking my arm on my son's skateboard back in 2017. So, yeah, it made me realize I'm not 16 anymore.
Now
So,
the real question is, have you been back on the skateboard since?
no. I have not, and I probably won't. So
Yeah,
I
I
don't
get
know.
that. I get that.
Yeah.
I like it. I like skateboarding. It's great. It is awesome. Number one, the weather in the UK is not really built for it. It rains too much. So you get a few times a year when it is really, really good weather.
I gotcha.
And aside from that, yeah, again, I'm getting too old. Like it hurts when I fall over. It hurts when I walk places now. So I can't keep doing this.
It hurts when I wake up sometimes. I'm like, so I can definitely understand that. Well, let's get into ThreatLocker. So ThreatLocker has been a part of our community for a long time, and what about members who have not seen ThreatLocker or heard about ThreatLocker? What does ThreatLocker do for MSP or IT service providers?
Sure, great question. So what ThreatLocker essentially does is it provides zero trust endpoint security to yourselves and to your clients. We do it through 5 key components. The first is allow listing. You'll have heard us use a few different names: application whitelisting, deny by default, default deny, or allow listing. It's all the same thing. Essentially, allow what you need to run, block everything else. Nice and easy.
Sure.
Once you've allowed what you want to run, you then need to ring fence it. So like PowerShell, for example, can access all of your data. Do you want PowerShell to do that? No, that's terrifying. No. So put a fence around the app so it cannot access certain things. And we touch on that in the demo today that I'll show. Elevation control, take away admin rights from users, but allow them to be able to run certain apps as an admin. Storage control, have pretty much total control over your data. Set limits as to what applications can access your file and folder location. Limit the use of USBs, etc.
So I want to ask you a question. You said, because one of the reasons that MSPs, I think, give their clients, their end users, admin permissions is because they don't want to have to be bothered every time that the client has a certain function that really shouldn't be an administrative role, but it requires administrative elevation to run. So they just make it easy and just give them administrative access. So you mentioned that you can basically give the end users their cake and eat it too with your solution by, allowing them to have admin rights only for certain things.
Exactly. So you can essentially allow your end users to have individual admin rights to individual applications. That's it, which is really awesome because we can now remove that admin privilege from users. Users can't be trusted with usernames and passwords. We know this. Right. We've seen it time and time again. My favorite kind of story of this was in, I think, 2017, 2018, there was in Hawaii, there's an early warning missile alert system. And essentially what it does is if a missile's coming in, they send a text out saying there's a missile coming, panic. I don't really know, but we don't have that in the UK. So they'll send a text out, and they accidentally sent a text, but didn't say it was a test. No. Obviously, everyone's panicking, going, crap, this isn't good. Right. Now, luckily, the missiles never came. It was a test. So there was this huge news circus around it, and the head of the agency behind it actually went ahead and did kind of an interview. And there's these kind of web pages, interviews, and there's a photo of him stood there in front of his computer, and on a post-it note on the bottom left-hand side of his computer is his password.
I was going to say, when you said that, I was like, he's going to say password.
So that is why we can't trust users with admin control, because they're going to go ahead and write this down, and then this happens. So we need to remove local admin control from users. You mentioned it'll be maybe just to do a few different installs of apps, but it could be even updating apps like QuickBooks, for example. It requires admin rights to do that. Whether it be going ahead and you could have that really old app from 10 years ago that your client requires for their work. They will not swap off it. You've shown them 12 different solutions that will do it 10 times better, but they will not listen. That is the one app they want. It is the one app they're going to use.
The
My dad's an
legacy
engineer.
application.
Yeah, my dad is an engineer. He has those applications. I've tried convincing him. I can't. Like, it's just what people like at the end of the day. That app, to be able to run on the most recent systems, may need admin privileges because it wasn't built with Windows 11 in mind, for example.
Right.
The compatibility layer may not be working properly. This allows you to run individual apps as an admin without having a full user as an administrator.
Okay. Perfect.
And then the final one was actually a brand new product that we've released. It's currently in beta, so I will touch on it towards the end of this.
Okay.
It's called Network Access Control, and essentially allows you to have full inbound or full deny by default on any inbound traffic on your machines. And then you can allow access based on, is it coming from a ThreatLocker agent, using a specific keyword, for example, or an IP address, etc.
Okay, very good. And you called that web?
Network access control.
Oh, network access control. That's right. Okay. I have heard about that. Okay. All right, perfect. How many people work at ThreatLocker?
Great question. I think, and I could be very wrong here, I think we're about 160 now.
Okay.
Every time I'm very lucky. I get to go to the head office about once or twice a month, and every time I go over there, I see new people that I have no idea who they are. So my number could be totally off, in all honesty.
I got you.
But yeah, by last count, we're about 150, so we're probably up to about 160-ish now.
And how long ago did ThreatLocker did Danny found ThreatLocker?
So Danny, our CEO, Danny Jenkins,
Yep.
I want to also stress, no relation. We are not related. We're just both two Brits who have the last name of Jenkins. He is the only other Brit I've met with the last name of Jenkins as well, which is very odd.
Gotcha.
So, but we are not related. So Danny founded ThreatLocker, I believe it was about 5 years ago.
Okay. And wow, you guys already have over 160 employees. That's quite an impressive scale there. That's really good.
So a lot of our growth came, I would say, within the last year and a half, 2 years, especially off the back of the Kaseya breach. That was a really big one when MSPs realized that, maybe my RMM can be weaponized against me. And this isn't just a Kaseya thing. SolarWinds happened as well.
Sure.
And let's be honest, all RMMs are likely going to be hit at some point.
Sure.
I'm not calling out those individual companies. So I think it was at that point MSPs realized that I need an RMM to be able to do my work. It is genuinely very valuable, but I need to have protections against it as well.
That's right. And you mentioned the Kaseya breach. That's fresh on everybody's mind. That we're coming up on the 1 year anniversary for that too, aren't we? Wasn't that July 4th of 2020? Was it July 4th?
I think it was
July 4th.
Yes, because Danny, I remember Danny was on holiday and he was like, I'm gonna regret this. And he regretted it. Like, it was so I think he said the most amount of cyber attacks generally are around the holiday seasons, July 4th, for example. And he decided he'd take a holiday then, and that was the wrong thing to do, it seems.
Well, we'll have to tell him he can't do that this year.
Well, exactly. This is the problem. So it's we must be up to the 1 year anniversary. Yeah, wow, that time has flown.
I know, it's been great. So how much new people did you get, new clients did ThreatLocker get as either MSPs due to that breach?
I would say we've had a huge amount of growth from that. I wouldn't know an exact number off the top of my head, but I would say it's been a significant amount, and we had a large amount of growth. I mean, just from our hiring of employees and obviously to support the MSPs that we have brought on from that. But it's not just the MSPs, the new MSPs we brought on. We've helped to grow existing MSPs as well, which is the really key thing. So it's been pretty insane from one cyber attack, or two if you count SolarWinds as well. How much I think cybersecurity has become a lot more of a stronger focus as well over the last year and a half inside of the MSP community, and I have a feeling it may be due to some of those attacks that have been going on.
Now, prior to coming to ThreatLocker, were you actively involved in the cybersecurity community?
Yes. So some of you may recognize me. I used to actually work at Datto. So I was at Datto for about 6 years. Doing numerous roles through Datto, all technical roles. And then actually prior to that, I worked at a managed service provider.
Okay.
And prior to that, I was actually a sysadmin at a secondary school. So I've done end user, MSP, vendor.
So you know the game. Full
Oh
circle.
yeah, I've done it all, and I've got to say I quite like being able to help MSPs from my side,
Great.
which is why I'm kind of sticking with vendor side at this point in time. MSP, who knows? Maybe back again at some point, but I quite like being able to help the MSPs from this side.
So what are some things you've heard from MSPs using ThreatLocker as far as, what are some good things you can tell us that MSPs have told you after they've implemented your product?
Yeah, so for example, I was actually doing an audit with a customer not long back, and we managed to find a crypto miner that was existing on his system, but his AV solution, which I will not name,
Sure.
did not actually pop up and say this is a bad thing and you need to go ahead or we're going to go ahead and block this. And I think that's one of the key things here. Our auditing solution inside of ThreatLocker, which I will show in a little bit, is insanely powerful. I can show you every single file that is logged, executed, etc. And I was able to, from very quickly, just going through that audit, I saw it was called run.vbs, and it was running out of the public, out of a public user. And instantly I was like, that's odd. Like, what is this?
What is that doing? It's not normal.
Yeah, spoke to the MSP, said, can we pull that down? He pulled the file down, crypto miner. So number one, what are we able to do? I can tell you exactly what is running on your machines, which is, I think, something that MSPs often struggle with, knowing exactly what software is running, knowing exactly what executables are executing on my machines.
Getting that visibility.
Exactly. And what else can I do? I can realistically give you, I would say, one of the best chances of having total cybersecurity across your network. Now, I'm never, ever going to say, and I think any security vendor that sits there and says, I'm 100% going to stop everything from happening, is lying.
Right.
And if anyone ever says that, they're wrong, because we can't
run. If they ever say that, run away from them.
Completely. We can't predict what's going to happen. What we can do, and the best way that I see cybersecurity, is trying to put as many hurdles in place. It's trying to make it as hard as possible for the threat actor to be able to weaponize applications against you. And that is what we're able to do here with ThreatLocker. Not just a couple of hurdles. We're able to throw all of the hurdles at them.
Well, from the MSP's perspective too, or IT solution providers that you've worked with and have already implemented ThreatLocker, how hard of a learning curve is ThreatLocker for them?
Great question. So I'm an honest guy. I will say, so long as you join our training sessions, which we run with you, you're not going to have any problem. Now, the reason I'll say that is essentially when you go ahead and deploy the solution, it sits in a learning mode. Now, this learning mode will catalog all the files, folders, applications, basically anything that's executing on your machine, and creates policies automatically to say this is allowed to run. And everything else, when you go into a secure mode, will be blocked. So we handle all of that for you. Now, while this is going on, we're going to run.
And that's the zero trust technology, right?
Exactly. So we're using a zero trust approach. Now, zero trust, for those who are unaware, is essentially least privilege, providing least privilege to machines, users, applications, network devices, all of that kind of stuff. It's a security model. And so during this learning period, while we're learning what's happening, creating policies, auditing it, etc., what we're going to do is we're going to have 1 hour meetings with you once a week for, say, 3 to 4 weeks while you trial the solution. Now, during that period, we are training you on the solution. We're showing you what everything does. We are literally pairing you up. You will have your own solutions engineer who, I've got to say, are geniuses. And they understand ThreatLocker inside and out. Often, many of them have worked at a ton of other large vendors like ConnectWise, or they've even worked from MSPs as well. So we have some excellent solutions engineers who are brilliant technically, and they will sit there and train you on the solution. So from a learning curve perspective, it's actually pretty slim, so long as you have joined, obviously, our training sessions so that we can help to guide you through it.
Okay. Well, before I forget, Ben, Kurt Esser asked me to ask you this question. I'm not sure if he is viewing this now, but he asked me to, just in case he couldn't make it, he wanted me to ask you about minimum number of customers or licenses, and if small one-person break-fix companies can use and implement ThreatLocker, or do they need to be an MSP with X number of customers and licenses?
Sure. So we essentially have a minimum license count of 20. So pretty much anyone should be able to hit that realistically. The only thing that we ask is that you have some kind of support function for the end user. So you are offering that kind of support piece. The way I would actually see this is it's a great way for break fix, if they want to transition into being an MSP.
Sure. Good point.
You're offering that managed service. So it's
because you really couldn't offer a break fix provider really couldn't offer ThreatLocker to its customers because you need to manage and maintain ThreatLocker. It's not something like an AV. You just install it, let it go, and hear back from the customer if they have a problem only. It's an ongoing thing.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there. I mean, like with ThreatLocker, it is a zero trust approach. So we are denying by default is the term that we like to use. Now, with that, if your user wants to run a new application, it's going to be blocked. So because of that, they need to be able to raise that request. So yeah, it is more of an MSP focused tool, but it is a great way for break fix to shift over to being an MSP and obviously getting that lovely recurring revenue.
Sure.
With a solution like this. So it's very helpful in that way as well.
Okay. Is there, I hate to bring up competition, but is there anybody else, and you don't have to, if there is, you don't have to say them, but is there any other competing products to ThreatLocker? Is there any other zero trust companies out there? Do you have any competition?
So yes, and also no. It's that meme. I don't know if you look at memes. There's the meme of the pirate who's like, "Well, yes, but actually no." So yes, we have competition, but not essentially.
They're not competition.
That's awfully.
That's okay. You can say that.
No. So what it is we have got competition, but we haven't got competition who does everything that we do. That's where it's different. So from the allow listing standpoint, Carbon Black, AppLocker. There's AirLocker as well, I think based out of Australia. Like those guys do application whitelisting, deny by default, allow listing. Okay. So they are our competition there, but they don't do the rest of what we do, the other 4 products we've got. So if we then look at ring fencing, I'm actually not aware of anyone who does ring fencing in a similar or a way that we do. I think AppLocker can do certain pieces but it's not realistically able to use what it's AppLocker. AppLocker is just, I don't like AppLocker in the slightest. So you've got AppLocker there. Elevation control. There is a company called Auto Elevate. They do that as well. But again, they are just elevation control. Storage control, you've got loads of USB blocking solutions, that kind of stuff. So that's, that exists. And then network access control, there are a couple of solutions out there as well for that. So we do have competitors in each of these product pieces, but we don't have a competitor who does everything. Now, MSPs know, and I know this from my MSP background and from working with MSPs for the last 10 years now, you are going to succeed when you have less products to manage, because it's going to be a hell of a lot easier for you guys as an MSP. One of the major selling points of when I was at Datto doing BCDR was we used to call it one throat to choke. So it was essentially, you got your hardware from us, you got your backup solution from us, everything was all in one. That is what we're offering here. We're offering one throat to choke. We are the whole solution. So you're not having to go to other vendors to be able to get a ton of different products here. You can get it all under one roof.
I love that. I'm going to have to remember that. One throat to choke.
It's quite a novel way of looking at it, I've got to say.
Okay, great. Well, Ben, I am itching to look at the demo, the live demo. So if you're ready to dive into it, let's take a look at ThreatLocker and see what ThreatLocker is.
Perfect. How long have we all left?
How long do we have left?
Yeah,
as long as you want.
Perfect. That's my favorite. Wow, when I hear that. Okay, awesome. So let's jump into it. So,
okay.
Yeah, Scott, I mean, if you have any questions while we're in this, please shout them out. If you see any questions come in as well, please feel free to interrupt me. I prefer these to be as, interactive. Yeah. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So on this screen here, this is essentially our computers page. This is where you can manage all of your machines at each of your organizations. Now, it's worth noting that organizations, because you guys as MSPs are going to be supporting a ton of different clients. So what we actually are able to do here is under the organizations page, just here, you would have a list of each of your client orgs right in there. Now, when you go ahead and deploy using your RMM tool of choice, which I would expect you would, whether that be ConnectWise, Datto, Kaseya, Synchro, I can't think of any others. There's like
Ninja.
50. Ninja, there we go. There is hundreds of other RMMs, and we do
Atera.
support a ton of them. Yep, Atera. So like with those solutions, when you go ahead and deploy, we will actually push those machines into their own sites, or in the RMM, they're called a site. We will look at what that site is, and we will create that as an organization. So we're doing that heavy lifting for you. You're not having to manually move machines. That is handled by us when you go ahead and deploy using your RMM. So that's great.
Okay.
Now, next up, you'll see that the machine goes in something called a learning mode. Now, learning mode is essentially where we catalog all the files and folders that exist on the machine to create policies automatically. We are a policy-driven solution here. And that generally lasts between 7 and 10 days. So nice and easy, really, really short. Now, the reason we do this, and this is where we're set apart from other application whitelisting solutions, because app whitelisting is generally a pain to set up. Like it pretty much, it sucks. Because you have to go ahead and calculate the hash for every file and then go ahead and say, I want to allow this hash to be able to run. And that gets annoying. And there are some solutions that can do learning as well. I'm not going to pretend that we are the only solution. But I would say that our learning is very, very good at picking up what exists on your machines.
Okay.
Now, once we've gone ahead and learned, you would then go ahead and secure your machine. As you can see, the secured machines are just up here. So let's actually have a look at what this looks like. Well, under app control, inside of policies, if I go into one of my groups that I've got my machines set up in, which is workstations, I can see I've got a list of policies here on my machine. Now, these are the applications that I'm allowing to essentially be allowed to run. You'll see that quite a few of them have built in next to it. And this is another place where we differ from other application whitelisting or allow listing solutions, because the other problem that comes with a solution like that is, again, it's hash based. So you're allowing specific hashes to be able to run, which means by everything else is going to get blocked by default. Cool, pretty understandable. But if I'm allowing Google Chrome's hash and then Google Chrome produces a brand new update, the hash is going to be different because the hash is a fingerprint for a file, for example. So the hash is going to be different because the file is different, which means that hash is going to get denied. Now, your users know they can run Google Chrome. And when they click that update button, they're going to get a pop-up that says, I'm not allowed to run this. What's that going to do? That's going to upset them. And we know
generate a call.
It's going to generate a call. Exactly. We know what happens when users get bogged down and they get annoyed with their security solutions. Generally, they say, rip it out, which we want to avoid. So our way of dealing with that is actually with built-ins. Now, we're essentially going to go ahead and we check over, I think it's 1,500. It could be slightly more now. Applications every single day for any updates. These are the most common apps that you'll use across your network. If we find any updates, we catalog the hash for you and add that into the policy. So if you have one of these built-in policies, which again is picked up based on learning mode, nice and handy, we're going to be dealing with that for you. So what should happen is your user can go ahead and click on that update, and we should have caught it beforehand, and they'll be able to go ahead and update it.
So this will prevent as well an application that's malicious masquerading itself as a legitimate app under the name of like Microsoft Office, but that would stop someone downloading it, installing it, and putting malicious code on that machine.
Well, yeah, so actually that would just be blocked by default because the hash would be different.
Oh, that's right.
So yes, exactly. Yeah. So that would be blocked right outright. So yes, that's exactly what this is useful for.
Even though Office is approved.
Exactly. Even
because
though
the hash is not correct.
It's because the hash is different. And that's where
and the hash is the digital fingerprint of that program.
Okay. Exactly, yeah. So that's where this is a really, really powerful tool. Now, the way this works is actually very simple. When you want to run a file, it checks against the top policy. Okay. And if it does not match anything in that top policy, it goes down to the second policy. And if it doesn't match anything there, it goes down to the third policy and then the fourth policy. And you can see where this is going all the way to my final policy, which is at default, deny.
Okay.
By default, denying access. So let's go ahead and show you this. Inside of my downloads here, if I go ahead and I've got, let's just go with TeamViewer. Everyone hates TeamViewer. Let's do it. Double click onto TeamViewer, give it a couple seconds to be able to load up. And what I should be able to see in the middle of my screen is a block. Down the bottom right, I have another block as well. And this is essentially telling me that, look, ThreatLocker's blocked this from running. You know, we don't want to allow this file to execute because it is unknown. But do you want to request access? So a user can go ahead, just click on request access here, and they'll have this pop-up. They can enter in their reason, whatever that is, to be able to run this application. And they can also go ahead and enter in their email address here. Now, this is really key because it will notify the user automatically if this request has been approved or denied.
So that stops the phone call.
That stops another one of those phone calls as well, yes. Now, it's also worth noting this pop-up can be fully rebranded to whatever you'd like it to be. I think we have got an MSP who's got, like, rather than the ThreatLocker logo there, I think they've got a photo of them frowning with, like, pointing. So you can go ahead and change this to whatever you want. You can change all the text if you wanted to. You know, if you support predominantly Spanish-speaking companies as well, you can go ahead and change that. It's very easy to be able to configure this.
Okay, very editable.
Now, from there, go ahead and click Send Request, and that request is now going to go through to our ThreatLocker portal. That's great. Wonderful. Inside of the Approval Center, I can see that request just here. Nice. The problem is you guys are going to have multiple techs. You don't want your techs having to go ahead and check this portal every single day to see if there has been any requests. Frankly, it's tiresome, it's tedious. That is why you have ticketing systems, so that everything's logged inside of there. We integrate in with pretty much all of the major ticketing systems. And if we don't integrate in natively, so long as it can receive email alerts, we can email alert you into your ticketing system that way as well, to alert you that a request has come through.
Excellent.
So from there, in the ticket, there'll be a link. You click that, it takes you through to this page. Then, IT admin goes ahead and clicks on view, and they get this pop-up here. Now on here, I've got a whole host of information. I can see the name of the file, I can see the hash, I can see the certificates, and this is really to give me an overview. Is this file really what it says it is? Now, I could also go ahead and check VirusTotal if I wanted to on this machine, and I can see if it is safe or unsafe. I would like to just make it very clear there are quotation marks here. I'm not saying if it says it's fully undetected that it is 100% safe.
Right.
It gives you a good idea as to, can I probably trust this? Can I possibly not?
Sure.
From there, you can download it, test it on your own local machine if you wanted to. But finally, we can see it actually matches one of ThreatLocker's built-in applications. So I'm going to go ahead and say I want to permit this to be able to run. And then finally, I'm going to choose who this applies to. So I can apply policies actually really, really granular here. I can say they apply to only one computer, to a group of computers, or to my entire organization if I wanted to.
Okay.
It's also worth noting that you can apply policies to every single customer with a couple of clicks if you wanted to. So inside of your root account, you'll have each of your customers as child accounts. If you apply a policy to a certain group called global, it will apply to every single machine you're managing. So for those kind of key applications that you want everyone using, maybe you really love Mozilla Firefox and you say that is the browser that we support here. Well, you can go ahead and approve Mozilla Firefox across the board for all of your customers.
Gotcha.
Maybe you use Datto RMM and you want to go ahead and approve the RMM agent because obviously otherwise that's going to get blocked. You can go ahead and do that across all of your customers.
So with ThreatLocker, everything is blocked by default unless you allow it and whitelist it. The application whitelisting.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's we call it allow listing. We used to call it deny by default or default deny, and I think that's personally I could get in hot water here, but I think that's a better term because it's pretty descriptive. It's default denying. Now, so that's essentially what we're doing. We are by default blocking access to any of these kind of applications to be able to run.
So I do have a quick question, and you may get into this and answer this already, but when let's go back to the Kaseya breach because there was not a lot that was discussed or talked about that could save anybody from having that done and having their clients ransomed. So how I understand ThreatLocker goes in and can, you want to tell me if I'm right here with the term ring fence and ring fence the application of the RMM. Exactly. So how does that process look and work, and can you kind of go in depth a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So let's just quickly show just so everyone gets the full picture.
Yeah,
TeamViewer was blocked.
Yeah.
Give it a couple seconds, and it should then load up. Just finish that off so that we don't get a massive.
There you go.
He didn't finish the.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. So then that is app whitelisting or allow listing or default deny, whatever you like to call it.
Okay.
Now, the next piece is ring fencing. And yeah, I mean, you raised a very good point. This time last year, in about 4 or 5 days, there was the Kaseya breach. It's been almost a year now, which is pretty insane. Early in 2021, we had the SolarWinds Orion breach as well.
Yep.
Like RMM tools that we use daily to be able to manage our customers are being attacked. And I'm not calling out those two companies. I'm really not calling out those companies, but
because it could happen to any company, any RMM
what I would
provider.
say is any company will be hit, and I truly believe that any RMM will be hit, which is why I think it's really good that we haven't heard a huge amount of news coming from data about the Kaseya attack, and there wasn't a huge amount coming from ConnectWise regarding those attacks as well, because I think they recognize as well that they could be vulnerable as well, and they could be weaponized, and they can be utilized. It's the same as any tool can be weaponized and utilized. We saw, for example, the Felina vulnerability on May 27th, allowing you to be able to execute any file you wanted on a local machine by double-clicking on a Word document, and it did not matter if macros were disabled. So we're seeing applications being weaponized, RMMs being weaponized, and we are seeing that this has happened, and I truly believe it is only going to increase, and it is only going to get worse, and we are going to start seeing more of these attacks.
Sure.
Now, our way of solving that is actually with ring fencing. So we're going to limit what these applications can go ahead and access. Now, a great way to be able to visualize this, I have a Word document here, my very important Word document. And when I go ahead and open this, it will have, when it does load, we will get there. There we are. 2 hyperlinks. Now, both these hyperlinks look like they go to Google, and to an average user, sure. Now, to you and I, we know where this is going. If I hover over one, it says Google. If I hover over the other, it can go ahead and open up Powershell, right? But this is a common attack that we see from threat actors. Now, let's just imagine the average user. Maybe they're working from home. They had a bad night's sleep. They go ahead and they click on this. They see this pop up, but the kids are running around in the background. The dogs.
They really don't take the time to read it.
They're not taking the time. They've got other things going on. We're humans at the end of the day. So they just go ahead, do I want to open this file? Which is a really bad thing for Microsoft Office to end it with, because let's be realistic, everyone scrolls to the bottom and reads the last bit. Would I like to open this file? Of course I want to open the file. So I go ahead and click on OK. And then before I know it, I can have PowerShell open doing whatever it was programmed to be able to do. Now, something else has happened here. I can see it says no program is registered to open this file. And that right there is because of our ring fencing policy. So what I'm essentially saying here is that Office is allowed to run. I want Office to run. I've whitelisted it and said you are allowed to work.
Gotcha.
But you are not allowed to access PowerShell, command prompt, cscript, regserve, 4 files, scheduled tasks, run DLL, and then the new one we've added is now MSDT. And this policy is applied by default to every single customer who signs up with ThreatLocker. So we have this out of the gate for you guys.
So it breaks the link from clicking on it breaks it from clicking on the link and then using Office to open up PowerShell, which it would do by default.
Yes.
And so that's the break in the chain there.
So the really interesting piece, if you have a look at the vulnerability that came out, the Felina vulnerability, it essentially used a Word document which had a bitmap image in it. Now you can point a bitmap image to, it's normally pointed to itself, and the easiest form is it's pointed to itself. But you can actually go ahead and edit the code or the file itself and say that I want it to point to a certain link. And that link could be a web page, and it could be hosting a malicious payload. Okay. Now, in this vulnerability, it did exactly that. It would point out, and then on that malicious payload, it essentially just called MSDT, which is the Microsoft Software and Diagnostic Tool. From calling MSDT on the local machine, it could then go ahead and execute any executable across your machine. So there were some really cool demonstrations. I like to give a big shout out to John Hammond. He's a security analyst. I believe he works at Huntress. He did a really cool demonstration of it. We did a demonstration. It's on our YouTube video channel if anyone wants to check that out. I did a live demonstration of how you can actually utilize that vulnerability to be able to download an executable from a web server and then execute it on a local machine. Now, why did I do that? Because it shows ransomware. So by double clicking on one single document, I was able to go ahead and execute and copy a file down and then have that kind of weaponized on my machine. Now, the good thing would be that obviously if I had application whitelisting installed, it would block that. So that's great. But what about other types of attacks? So I have a script here. It's not even a script, it's a command. I have a command here that will take a copy of my data using PowerShell and take it's essentially taking a copy of my documents using PowerShell and then uploading it to some Google Blob storage that we here at ThreatLocker host.
Okay.
Now, like natively, this wouldn't be blocked because why would this be blocked? PowerShell's allowed because it's a trusted app, right? So this is where app whitelisting alone fails and why app whitelisting and ring fencing is really powerful. Now, if I was to go ahead and run this, it's actually going to go ahead and it's going to get blocked. So if I right click on my ThreatLocker tray, go into my blocked items, I can see here that PowerShell did in fact try to access my documents as I said it would, and it was ring fenced. And the reason it was ring fenced is because another one of our default policies is PowerShell ring fencing. And this one's really cool. I'm saying that PowerShell is allowed to run because you guys use PowerShell day in, day out, but it is not allowed to access BitLocker Internet Explorer because why does it ever need to access that?
Right.
It's not allowed to access any of my protected files. And it's also not allowed to access the internet unless IP addresses, domain names are listed in here. And the pièce de résistance, the amazing piece of this is during the learning process, we learn what PowerShell is trying to access and add it in here for you.
Okay.
So again, we're doing that heavy lift for you. So this right here is how we can actually go ahead and stop rogue executables from being able to run without whitelisting, allow listing, deny by default. But how we can also minimize and mitigate the damage that vulnerabilities from those applications are able to cause. How we can try to minimize the problems that they will go ahead and cause there. So it's really cool. And I think really, when we look at app whitelisting, we tend to think of just that, when we should be thinking about ring fencing as well and how the apps can be weaponized. And they go hand in hand really, really well.
Yeah, that's very important.
Yes.
It seems like they're both equally as important now.
So obviously, once we've gone ahead and we've done that, we then need to look at kind of elevation control, which is something that we spoke about earlier, okay. Scott. So, you know, if you remember that, me being able to, you know, I can run TeamViewer already. Well, if I try to right click and run it as an admin, I'm going to get a block down the bottom right now.
Okay.
And that block is essentially telling me, look, you're not a local admin. You're not allowed to run it. Okay. So I can go ahead, I can request elevation. I can send that request off if I want to.
Same thing we saw earlier.
Same thing we saw earlier. Now, just to save some time, you can see my UACs popped up as well. I don't have admin rights on this machine, so I'm going to click no. We could go through the same process, but just to save a little bit of time, what I'm going to do is, I mean, it is exactly the same process as earlier. I'm just going to edit my pre-existing policy. It does the same thing pretty much. And I'm going to go with a couple of clicks, allow elevation now. That's it. Okay. So what I'm now saying is that TeamViewer is now allowed to be permitted to run, but it is also now allowed to elevate. We can actually check that. So inside of this policy list, I can now see TeamViewer at the top, permitting to run, and now allowed to elevate. Now this should be active.
So that's what the blue up arrow means, elevated permission.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, that's what the blue up arrow means. Now,
I'm big on visuals, so that I can look at that and visually see, okay, everything checks. These apps.
Oh, yeah. It's pretty cool because I can see here putty, for example.
Yeah,
awesome.
putty.
Allowed to elevate. Nice and clean. And we're actually going to show that in a second. So if I go ahead into TeamViewer, hopefully we've left it a minute. If we haven't, it's going to be horrifically embarrassing. Yes, we have. Perfect. Down the bottom right, we can see ThreatLocker's elevated TeamViewer to run as a local admin, and there we are.
There you go.
That's it. Don't need username.
Why would you need? Why would you want to elevate Notepad?
So I will show you. It's actually part of a demonstration. Now, okay. I'm not going to name. I don't like to vendor bash. I don't help anyone. But there are elevation tools out there which are wonderful, really great tools, lovely UIs. They do the job really, really well. There's a slight problem with elevation tools in general, though. And it's actually not an issue with elevation tools. It's more an issue with Windows. And it's an attack called application hopping. So let's show you. If I go ahead and right click on Putty, run that as an administrator, you'll see it goes ahead, elevates as an admin, Putty is open. Perfect.
Yeah.
What I can then do is jump into logging, go to browse, it brings up a file explorer. I've got a copy of PowerShell here. If I right click onto PowerShell, run that as an administrator, I've just hopped from one app into another app as an admin. Now that pretty much destroys the whole point of having an elevation control solution. Because if you've got one app that can now run as an admin, you can just hop from app to app as an administrator as you wanted.
I see. I see.
So this is really, really dangerous. It's a common attack vector we see threat actors using. And I expect people on this video, whether they're watching it now or in future, are probably thinking, wait a second, he's just shown me ThreatLocker doesn't work, or he's just shown me a problem.
Right.
Yes, but also no again. So the reason I say that is because what we're looking at here is just elevation control.
Okay.
Well, let's look at the whole ThreatLocker solution that I've shown so far together, okay? Because let's remember, the whole solution integrates really tightly. So this is why I have Notepad. It's purely just for the demonstration purpose. If I right-click onto Notepad and then run Notepad as an administrator, I'm going to go ahead and see it gets elevated, which means elevation.
Because it's allowed.
It runs because it's allowed, yeah? If I go into File, try to open, and then from there, go into my downloads again, where I have that copy of PowerShell, right-click onto that, and then run that as an administrator, I'm going to get a block. And that right there is because it's ring-fenced.
Gotcha.
I am saying here that Notepad can run. It's allowed to run elevated, but it is not allowed to access any other application across my network. And that is why it is so important to work with the whole of the ThreatLocker solution rather than just kind of individual components. And also why I would say there are problems with other elevation tools because they cannot solve that issue.
So, and that issue is called application hopping.
Application hopping, yeah, it's a common attack thing that threat actors will utilize.
Interesting. I've never seen that actually in real time like that. So
it's very cool. It is very, very cool. It's not something I came across really until I joined ThreatLocker, but it's a fairly common attack. And I mean, just from one application, I was able to hop as an admin into PowerShell. And once I'm an admin in PowerShell, it's kind of game over, right?
Right.
So incredibly dangerous there.
Wow.
Now, obviously, I'm aware we're short on time, so I just want to jump through into the next piece. Storage control essentially allows you to be able to do two things. The first of which is blocking USBs, but actually really granular with it. So I can see I've got a block down here. If I go ahead and request access, send that request through straight into my approval center, just as earlier, I can view this, but there is a difference. I can allow USBs based on their drive letter. So drive letter D or E or F. Personally, I don't like that. That's not overly secure. So why not only allow USBs if I have to have USBs based on their serial number? So only specific USBs based on that serial number can be plugged in, and then only read only or read and write. And then finally, well, who is it we want to allow this for? One machine, a group of machines, or the entire org? So we can be super granular now when it comes to USBs. I can go further and I can have it so certain file types can be copied, or maybe I only want to allow encrypted USBs to be able to be plugged in. We can be super granular when it comes down to this USB access.
Okay.
But where storage control really comes into its own is actually just here with the policy list. So when you have an app installed in your machine, it has full access to anything that you as a user have access to, which is kind of okay when we think of Google or Google Chrome, sorry, because, Facebook's got all of our data already, right? So Google Chrome having it can't cause much more harm. But what about those shady apps that you had to install? Like the audio driver broke on your machine and the only way you could get it fixed was downloading that driver off of a Russian FTP site. Let's be realistic. We've all done it. Like, we hit those desperate moments. It's 3 a.m. We want to go to bed, but we said we're going to stay up and fix it. And you just kind of do it. Like, what about the app that, again, we spoke about earlier, hasn't been updated in 10 years? That kind of application needs to be limited to what it can access. And that's what we're able to do here. Because if I try to open up a file using an unapproved application that could be vulnerable to attack, I get a block right here.
Okay.
And that right there is because of this policy just here, my public share policy. I'm essentially saying any files that exist in this location are only allowed to be accessed by these applications.
Okay.
That's it.
I gotcha.
Now, why is this really important? Because let's take it a step further. Let's talk about backups. Maybe you're using Veeam for backup, or a backup solution that stores to a Synology NAS or a network share, for example.
Gotcha.
Well, why do I need any software that is not my backup software to be able to access my backup location? I don't. One of the first things ransomware does when it gets on a network is it looks for CIFS, NFS, SMB shares. It looks for backup locations, and it looks for OneDrive sync tools, Google sync tools as well, because it knows if it can infect that data, you're more likely going to go ahead and pay. So that's exactly what we can go ahead and do here. Lock down these data locations so that they cannot be infected, so they cannot be data being stolen, for example, as well. Okay. Now, two final things to show very quick. We'll touch on network access control very quickly. Network access control, again, allows you to be able to provide, based on either specific port access or access over specific ports, and then deny by default access across every other port on a machine if you wanted to. allow it based on specific keywords, for example, maybe tags, GUIDs. You could go ahead and say, because this agent is installed, is allowed to be able to access as well. Now, this is really, really handy in getting rid of VPNs. Rather than a user having to VPN to a site and then they're able to access that RDS server, you could make that public. And horrific idea. I would never, ever recommend this. I'm not saying it's actually something that you should use in practice, but what you could theoretically do is have every port open and we will deny by default unless it's coming from a specific machine.
Okay.
So public and open on the web. Again, horrific idea. Please don't ever think that I'm ever recommending it, guys. I recognize everyone's gone, never listen to this man again. But
open up every port.
Yeah, it's just, what's the worst that could happen? Let's just do it. So that's then network access control. Currently in beta, coming out very, very soon. So really cool.
Okay.
If you have ThreatLocker, please test it out. If you're looking at trying it out, just reach out. I'd love for you to see that. The final thing I wanted to show is our unified audit. And I save this for the end because it's my favorite part of the whole ThreatLocker solution. I'm a data guy. I like statistics. I like that kind of stuff. And inside of this solution, I can give you a ton of data. I can tell you, for example, at this date, this time, this machine, this user tried to access the D drive. It was a read and it was denied. Now, why was it denied? If I click on this drop down, I can see it was denied because of this policy. I actually have a policy in place that denies unencrypted hard drives, and that's an unencrypted hard drive. All of that is fully logged inside the solution. We log it for 30 days at a time. But where this gets really powerful, and one thing that I had when I worked at the school, when I worked at the MSP as well, is I would always have users call up and say, my files are missing. I don't know where they are. I haven't moved them. I didn't delete them. They've disappeared. It's your fault. Fix it. Yeah. And that's something that MSPs get all the time. And it's grating. And I understand it's painful. Well, I can actually tell you here, every single time a file is read, written, moved, and deleted. So I can tell Jill that when she calls up and says that I have moved her files or deleted them, that no, it was her, in fact, who accidentally held the mouse down and moved it 10 folders deeper.
On this date at that time.
On this date at this time. All of that is fully logged inside the solution. So I don't like to say we're a file auditing piece, but we do have some file auditing capabilities inside of there as well.
Okay.
Now, obviously, all of this, again, fully centrally managed. You can manage all of your customers from, I hate the term, but a single pane of glass. That is what this is here. Nice and easy to be able to manage everyone right from here. We have some reports that you can go ahead and run as well. The reports are really, really cool. There is literally a ton of them. If there is not a report that you want, you just reach out to us. We are more than happy to create the report, because if you're asking, someone else is going to want it as well. And the final thing, actually, a brand new piece that we have released is our dashboard. I need to check if it's not just in beta. It could just be in beta, so I will check that one for you guys. But we have got a nice new dashboard here as well to be able to just give you some statistics at a glance. So pretty cool.
Okay.
Awesome. Right. That is pretty much everything I wanted to be able to show. That's it. Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, Ben, I've got a question for you. If we've got IT business owner on the line that's watching the live stream with us, and they are interested in, getting started with ThreatLocker, what is the best way that they can do that?
Great question. The best thing to do, and I will throw it, I'll throw it out there. If you just email ben@threatlocker.com.
Okay.
I am more than happy to be able to help in any way. You can also go to the ThreatLocker. It helps if I spell the company right, doesn't it? That's embarrassing. If you go to the ThreatLocker website, inside of here, I believe there is a book a demo page as well. So there you go, right at the top. So you can actually go ahead and book a demo in right there and see kind of what I've shown you here today. So two ways: email ben@threatlocker.com, or just jump onto the ThreatLocker website and you can book a demo right in there.
That's perfect. And be sure, if you are watching this, that you let the ThreatLocker team know that you saw and heard about them in IT Business Owners Group. So
yes, please.
Perfect. Well, Ben, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Anything else you'd like to share before we wrap it up?
No, that's pretty much it from my standpoint. Actually, one final thing. Next, I believe it's February, we are going to be running Zero Trust World again. So guys, if you're interested, please do come along to it. It was awesome last year. I got to show a Wi-Fi pineapple hacking things, and we flew it on a drone over people. So that was quite fun, terrifying, because the night we did it before, the Wi-Fi pineapple fell off the drone.
Oh, no.
So we were terrified that wouldn't happen on people. So yeah, guys, if you get a chance, please do check it out. It's on our website. Come along to Zero Trust World. I believe it's February next year.
Okay. And that happens in Orlando, Florida, if I'm not mistaken.
Exactly. Yeah. So this year is in the Omni, I do believe. So yeah, Orlando, Florida.
Sounds great. Well, I will try to make that. And I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much, Ben. I will catch you the next time.
Thank you very much. Have a good day, guys.
Thanks. Bye-bye.